When it comes to the big climate events like COP30, we tend to focus a lot on what countries are doing, and we might talk to representatives from industry or even give some time to an activist or two, or three in fact. But faith-based organizations also play a really important role in the climate change story. In fact, one of the most distinctive voices that has emerged in recent years has been the voice of the Vatican, and we might say two popes, the one before and the one who is now in power. A few months ago, We Don't Have Time attended a truly inspiring event hosted by the Vatican. And we have a video of what happened there, so let's watch that now.
Hello world, greetings live from Italy, from Castello Gandolfo. Here we are and just found Ingmar from the platform We Have No Time. That is quite a statement, and he's really into storytelling and science.
The conference has been organised by the Laudato Si movement, which is the global movement that came to life in light of Laudato Si 10 years ago.
So the federal government had no interest in helping California with its environmental laws. As a matter of fact, many times stopped us. We needed what they called a waiver, which means the permission from the federal government to regulate our own air in California. Well, we went ahead anyway. And we passed one environmental law after the other. And when the federal government stopped us, we took them to court. And we went to court, the lower court, the higher court, to the Supreme Court of the United States. And there we beat them. We said, hasta la vista, baby.
The most important thing to do is to bring as many people into the climate movement to take action as possible, and crossing the path into connecting with people of all faiths and having faith-based movements part of the climate justice movement is incredibly important.
Well, Pope Francis was our very first state supporter, and he called for ecocide very early on in the course of our work.
Laudato Si are in fact even more relevant today than they were 10 years ago. These challenges are of a social and political nature, but first and foremost of a spiritual nature. They call for conversion. As with every anniversary of this nature, we remember the past with gratitude, but we also ask ourselves, what remains to be done? Over the years, we have transitioned from understanding and studying the encyclical to putting it into practice. What must be done now to ensure that caring for our common home and listening to the cry of the earth and the poor do not appear as mere passing trends, or worse still, that they be seen and felt as divisive issues. In line with Laudato Si, the apostolic exhortation Laudate Deum, published 2 years ago, noted that some have chosen to deride the increasingly evident signs of climate change, to ridicule those who speak of global warming, and even to blame the poor for the very thing that affects them the most. Besides spreading the message of the encyclical, it is now more important than ever to return to the heart. In Scripture, the heart is not only the center of feelings and emotions, but the locus of freedom. Although the heart includes reason, it transcends and transforms it, influencing and integrating all aspects of the person and his or her fundamental relationships. The heart is the place where external reality has the greatest impact, where the deepest searching takes place, where the most authentic desires are discovered, where one's ultimate identity is found, and where decisions are formed. It is only by returning to the heart that a true ecological conversion can take place. We must shift from collecting data to caring, and from environmental discourse to an ecological conversion that transforms both personal and communal lifestyles. For believers, this conversion is in fact no different to the one that orients us towards the living God. We cannot love God whom we cannot see while despising his creatures. Nor can we call ourselves disciples of Jesus Christ without participating in his outlook on creation and his care for all that is fragile and wounded. Dear friends, let your faith inspire you to be bearers of the hope that comes from recognizing the presence of God already at work in history. Let us recall how Pope Francis described St. Francis of Assisi. He lived in simplicity and in wonderful harmony with God, with others, with nature, and with himself. He shows us just how inseparable the bond is between concern for nature, justice for the poor, commitment to society, and interior peace. May each of us grow in these four relationships: with God, with others, with nature, and with ourselves.
Once I spoke with an astronaut, just came back from the moon with the stars in his eyes. He said, out there I learned a lot. Something changes inside when you see the earth rise. Got no boundaries and no walls, that living, breathing ball. Love is underneath it all, beneath the blue and green, connecting everything. I met a girl, she was very young, yet she spoke burning words with a fire in her eyes. She said, hey, something's really wrong. Deserts grow, people die while the oceans rise. She said, can't you see the urgency? You pretend that you care, then you look away. You are trampling on our hopes and dreams. We can't wait for a change, got to start today. You can feel it in the breeze, you're touching in the trees. You hear the waterfall, love is underneath it all. It's running in the fields and swimming in the deep, beneath the blue and green, connecting everything. Oh, yeah, I believe it isn't too late to turn around. Oh, yeah, I believe it isn't too late, too late, too late, too late.
Or do you turn off the tap? And if we do not turn off the tap on fossil fuels, we are not addressing the root cause, 86% of the problem. So therefore, more people should have been saying much earlier that we have to get out of our addiction of fossil fuels. Imagine this. the climate negotiations, the so-called COPs, has been going on for 30 years now. It took 28 years before 86% of the problem of climate change was even mentioned in an outcome document of COP.
You can feel it in the breeze, touch it in the trees. You hear the waterfall, love is underneath it all. It's running in the fields, it's swimming in the deep.
And the Daily Mail, they had another headline that was the Pope is woke and crazy, blessing ice. So how do you see the Vatican and the Catholic Church can get through the noise and unite people?
Well, it's a very good question. Maybe the Daily Mail hasn't heard of holy water, but in my view, the ice is holy water. It's a very conservative Catholic tradition to bless water. We use it in baptisms, and that water that's now holy will be given to all the participants as they leave the conference tomorrow. So I think a very profound act of the Holy Father to bless the melting ice. I think the Pope and the Catholic Church is a really important role to play here. I mean, let's face it, we're not in a good place when it comes to tackling climate change. We're facing rollbacks in terms of denialism. The fossil fuel industry are really fighting to see who's going to drill the last barrel of oil. So I think that the Catholic Church and Pope Leo, I really loved his speech actually. I thought it was very well balanced and lived up to expectations. It's about, the things that I took away were about the integrity of the message. It's an integral message. He's saying that this is not about the church becoming environmentalist, this is about the church being more church. And that there's nothing remotely unusual or unchristian about caring for God's creation. It's actually part and parcel, always has been. We've just not really taken it to heart. So that has been his message, and I think that he really underscored the importance of going back to the science. That was really important, of building coalitions, doing this together. He also talked about the need to continue to do advocacy, to be talking truth to power in the language I use. So I think that the message he gave is also a uniting message, because as people of all faiths, and there are people representing all faiths here, people of many different traditions and belief systems, we all share the one planet, and that's what has to come out, I think, in the next while in terms of overcoming divisions, that we walk on the same soil and we breathe the same air, and we have, if you're a Christian, you believe we have the same Father, the same Spirit, so we have to kind of look at where the commonalities are as well. There's a great number of Christians and people of faith who are not, let's say, anti this message, but they're sitting on the fence and maybe have not been engaged yet in language and ways that they understand how integral this is to their faith and their lives. So I'm really hopeful we'll manage to bridge that and to work together on.
And here we are at COP30, exactly like we talked about. Welcome again, Lorna.
Good to see you, Ingmar.
And thanks for joining us here in Belém in this tent in almost the rainforest.
It's so hot.
You are the executive director of Laudato Si movement. And for the viewers that haven't heard about this fantastic movement, can you tell them what it's all about?
So Laudato Si movement is a movement that came to life after Pope Francis launched his ecological manifesto in 2015. It's a group of people, lay Catholics, organisations, people from other faiths who collaborate with us from different climate groups, to really bring this message, this visionary prophetic message of Pope Francis and now Pope Leo out to the whole world. And it's been an amazing experience. None of us decided to start a movement, but somehow it's gained huge momentum. We have over 600 affiliated Catholic organisations. We've trained almost 40,000 local communities. And we do a lot of actions at the local level, but we also do these things at the global advocacy, bringing together many groups. Like, I think it's almost like weaving a tapestry. You know, weaving this tapestry that reaches across different groups, different faiths, in order to raise hope and to take concrete action around climate justice.
So it's not only Catholic Church that is mobilizing around this movement, it's very much everyone welcome.
Yeah, I think Pope Francis inspired so many people. People saw him, if you think back to 2015 and the COP, people saw him as a world leader on the issue of climate. And his encyclical Laudato Si, on care for our common home, is to all people on the planet. So everybody is welcome. Everybody's welcome to join us in working together. Many different faith communities have their own environmental groups. And there are many, obviously, secular climate organisations, but we see our role as trying to bring together many groups, trying to help to create a global planetary movement for change.
And when we met at the Vatican, you were very clear that what's different with this movement, and that gathering was a fantastic gathering, was that we need to bring in not only the brain but the heart.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you saw yourself what happens when people come as complete beings. Let's say we're not coming just with a policy head on, with a rational. Often in COP we find people are amazing. All the negotiators I meet, they're really nice people. They have a heart. But the system we've created does not allow the heart to show up at the negotiations. That to me is the fundamental issue here. The heart is where we have our ethical values. It's where we experience joy. It's where we experience sadness. And those emotions, we're not going to change the situation we're in now. We're not going to address it unless we are able to find something that helps us to shift and to connect our hearts and our heads. Faith communities with a very open creative approach to spirituality, like our movement, I think they're really important today. And you saw what can happen in Rome. People were joyful. I made a comment about let's bring joy to hope to COP. It's a hard sell.
Yes.
But I feel that it's only if we feel that sense of hope. We can't let go of hope, even in the midst of all the hard negotiations.
Hope is the only thing we have when everything else looks dark, and we just need to keep pushing. But you didn't just brought hope with you, you also brought a very powerful symbol blessed by the Pope, and I think we have something special going on now. So let's go out here at COP and see what's going on.
They're very far away.
They're somewhere there. I don't even see them.
But you can see there's the image of the Pope. We can talk about that for a minute, maybe. They're coming. So what we can see on our screens is a river of hope. So Pope Leo, when he came to the conference, he blessed the waters from 5 continents, including a melting glacier from Greenland ice sheet. And symbolically, we unfurled this material river as a symbol of all our tears being turned into hope, because we are all feeling really sad about what's happening in the world. And there's something we need to embrace, this sense of sadness. And we felt in that moment that the Pope helped us to transform our sadness through action into hope. And here's the amazing image. It was a magical moment when the Pope silently placed his hand on the glacier, and you could have heard a pin drop in the conference room. And it was profound, and you can see the image on his face. It was a profound moment of commitment, because I'm sure he feels the weight of the shoulders of Pope Francis.
And you also have this blessed water here.
We have a beautiful sculpture with the melted glacier ice. So the glacier ice is in here. And we've used this because this, for us as Catholics, is holy water. But many other faith communities also have this tradition of blessing water. So it's something that unites us across different faiths. Here's our friends.
And now they're coming, and it's hard to ignore this at COP. So, Lorna, this river you're bringing with you, I have never had a speaker bringing this. I'm the prop guy, but you have taken it to the next level. This is bringing in the peoples and the seas, the voice of the people. All nationalities, all nations are supposed to have their and the seas to present their targets for the Paris Agreement here at COP. And you're gathering with your organization and all the other faith organizations you're working with, the peoples NDCs. Can you tell us about what that is all about?
So the People's NDCs, which we're calling the PDCs, the People's Determined Contributions. And the idea behind this grew out of the global ethical stocktake. The Brazilian Minister Marina Silva was with us in Rome, and we had a multi-faith stocktake. And our thinking behind it is the NDCs and the COP process just doesn't manage to reflect the sheer amount of commitment, action from the part of civil society, faiths, business. We need to find a way that this global ethical stocktake and the commitment of the people, globally, the commitment of the people and all the different categories of people can be reflected in the COP process. So what we are launching here and proposing is that as part of the global stocktake process that goes forward from here, that we include a formal part of it to include the voices of civil society, and we launched the idea of people's determined contributions.
And what do you think will be in those contributions?
Well, I could talk for what Laudato Si movement is doing with the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
And we have a Laudato Si action platform, which already has over 100 Laudato Si plans, so full sustainability plans for Catholic institutions.
And that's quite many, right? How many churches do Catholic organization have?
So we have many, the church has many different land banks, forests, has schools, universities, parishes, dioceses. So what we're proposing for the next year is we're committing to scaling up the action platform and presenting a PDC, a People's Determined Contribution, on behalf of the Laudato Si movement and the wider Catholic Church. The Holy See is a party to COP. They presented an NDC this year, which is for full sustainability, but only for the Vatican state. We are going to complement that to reflect the 200,000 parishes that the Catholic Church has worldwide. So it's a big ask, and we are inviting other faith institutions.
That we will have very soon here on the panel.
Yeah, and they're going to come and talk to us now.
And
tease out this idea.
I think the time for it is now, actually.
Absolutely.
So let's bring in you.
I think every single person on this planet needs to be educated and re-educated about climate change. We are dedicated as the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to embrace this education issue.
We can look into the eyes of our children, our grandchildren, and we can finally say, tell them that we have joined hands to bequeath a more habitable world.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
State Congress voted to ban abortion. Cultural universe located.
Global temperatures rise.
The effects on social media on Generation Z.
To avoid catastrophe, rising sea levels, and dying coral reefs, the epicenter of a global pandemic.
No exception for rape or incest.
So we're going to, everybody's cheering. We're going to, it's great, it's like a football match right now. We will now expand this discussion with some really super guests. They're Amanda Ellis, Senior Director of Global Partnerships and Networks, Arizona State University. She's coming in by the magic of Zoom. I see your backdrop is not Arizona, I think it's Belém, but that's cool. The rest of the guests are Carlos Antonio Rocha Vincenti. Is he with us? No, he may join us. Okay. Hayley Campbell, Executive Director of Care About Climate. Lorna Gold, who we've already talked to, who we're just speaking to, Executive Director of Laudatio Si movement. Andreas Holmberg, Bishop of the Church of Sweden in the Diocese of Stockholm, where We Don't Have Time is headquartered. Right now we're headquartered here, but we're always back in Sweden. And Maria Mendelucci, the CEO of the We Mean Business Coalition. Absolutely love to see you all. Let's start off with Carlos, it says here, but we're not going to do that. Hayley, let's start off with you. You've been, you're representing Care About Climate, and your organization has created the NDC Equity Tracker. Can you tell us how this came to you, what was the idea, and why tracking gender justice, international equity, and civil society inclusion matters more than ever?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Nice to meet everyone here.
Everybody keep the microphone right up to the mouth.
Here.
There, with perfect.
Okay. Better, closer. Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really excited to be here on behalf of Care About Climate. We are a women-led organization, and so a couple of years ago, we were looking into NDCs and why they matter. And for those maybe watching who don't know what they are countries' nationally determined contributions, which are their national climate commitments in this process, and they really pretty much dictate our future as young people. And so when we were looking at them, we realized that there were academics and agencies tracking science and tracking the, climate trajectory, but they weren't really tracking the inclusivity and the equity components of NDCs. And so as young people, as young women, we thought, oh, well, there's a gap here, and who better to fill it than the very people impacted by them themselves. So we created the NDC Equity Tracker, which is a transparent accountability tool where young people from their country are trained to understand their NDC, to learn about their country's politics and policies, and then to provide recommendations and analyses that help them enhance their NDCs in the future. And so we're creating this kind of pipeline where we're educating and training young people. Then they become, scientists and analyzers, and they become advocates, and they're putting all of those different things together, which are all effective skills that you need to join the green transition, the just transition, in spaces like this, so that we create advocates who have the skills and tools and knowledge from their own lived experiences to be able to access these spaces and to engage constructively in them. And so we've actually trained 150 young people to analyze 85 NDCs, and we just launched a new initiative that I'll get into later last year to support that. But it's really a really amazing time getting to support all of these different young people from around the world.
And so we'll probably get some results soon on what's happening with the NDCs in terms of these new dimensions, these new parameters. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Great. Let's go to Amanda. Amanda, your work has really ranged all over the place. It says here from national governments to international diplomacy and academia. How do you view the role of grassroots mobilization in solving the climate crisis? Like the people's determined contribution that Lorna spoke about earlier.
One word, essential. It's wonderful to be able to be with you on Zoom, although I'm so sad not to be there in person. And I think this issue of non-state mobilization is critical. My previous role as New Zealand's ambassador to the United Nations had me looking at that big policy picture. And I see now how important not only faith-based communities, but business, academia, civil society, and philanthropy all are. And we've been thrilled to be able to work with Hayley and her group at Care About Climate and a whole range of other actors to produce something that we think is critical, launching tomorrow. And I don't know, you can't see it, so I will maybe put it in the chat, the Parliamentarians' Global Guide to Climate Change and Climate Solutions. And why? Well, people are the ones who vote and influence parliaments. Parliaments are the ones who make legislation, allocate budgets, and provide oversight. So we think it's really important to bring together broad coalitions to have an impact and an influence. And then I guess two other points too. The People's Determined Contributions is a fantastic platform. Our family has already made our commitment, so we're part of it. We're on the platform. And it's also really critical that we counter some of the negative voices in the media. We know from research that 89% of humans around the planet, ordinary people, really care and want their governments to do something about the climate crisis. And yet, if we don't have those voices heard, we think that, in fact, it's too expensive, it's too difficult, denial, doubt, delay, doom, all of the tactics of the fossil fuel industry and their very well-paid PR campaign. So I would just finish with a quote from Lorna's excellent book, Climate Generation. We need a true global planetary movement, and this is why it is absolutely essential for all of us to be backing the people's determined contributions.
Thank you very much indeed, Amanda. And I hear from your accent that you might either be a Kiwi from New Zealand or an Australian.
Actually, I'm a quasi. I'm both. The kids are kangaroos, okay. The adults are quasis.
You're probably backing Adelaide getting the next COP.
I sure am. Adelaide and the Pacific Islands.
Yeah, okay. Interesting what Amanda just said, which is, you know, people can get the wrong idea about how much this thing is going to cost, right, to actually, you know, meet the targets of the Paris Climate Agreement. And I think that's a really good point, because in the UK, they actually talked to people and people thought it would cost 30% of GDP or 20% of GDP to solve climate change, when the answer in the UK is more like 0.2%. Which is £1.50 in British money per person per week, which is less than a pint of beer. You know, it's not that bad. Anyway, let me come to the Bishop. Bishop Holmberg, you've been very outspoken on climate and sustainability issues for years. Why is it important for religious institutions to speak up in defense of this planet?
It's important because at the core of Christian faith is the calling to care for God's creation and to love all of our co-creatures and co-humans just as God loves all of creation. So it's at the very heart of our faith. So I think that's at the basis, and that's also part of many other faith traditions, the care for creation, which we are so dependent on We need the trees, we need the water. They don't need us. They could survive perfectly without us, but we couldn't make it without them. So it's a matter of faith. But we just had this wonderful stunt, and I've been taking part in numerous manifestations and demonstrations back home in Stockholm and Sweden. And sometimes I would be questioned, shouldn't you as a bishop be telling about Jesus, about reconciliation and so forth? And I said, my answer is indeed, and it's because I try to follow Jesus, because I believe in him and love him, that I feel compelled to involve myself and get engaged in these questions. It's not something on the margins of Christian faith, it's right in the middle.
We're going to come back to this we'll have a little chat. We've still got 20 minutes, so we've got chance for lots of chats. Maria, We Mean Business brings the private sector together to act on climate change. Why is the perception that business opposes climate change so common or so prevalent?
That business oppose to climate change.
Yes, and some people think business is always against climate change. Yeah. Is that something that you have a different view? That's why I'm asking.
Astonished by it. Yeah. Well, I think let's get it right. Business see that they need to do something on climate. For many years, it was because it was the right thing to do, but actually now it is because it makes so much business sense. There is a return on action and there is a return on responsibility. Good business, businesses that take care of climate right now, thanks to the development of many technologies, can be much more efficient, between 3 and 5 times more efficient if you have heat pumps of electric vehicles. This is savings. So again, the number that you say even before actually is positive. Taking climate action is positive. Now, business needs to do many things also in other aspects, but when it comes to climate, I think everything is aligned. There is a convergence between what we have heard before and what business are doing. And that's why there are more than 20,000 businesses that have committed to set science-based targets, which is similar to the people-determined contributions or NDCs. So yeah, I think there is, we did a polling of businesses across the globe. 97% of these businesses are going to invest in clean technologies, and they're doing it because it's good for business. But can you imagine, it's good for business, but it's good for their hearts. So it is in some ways where hearts and minds are meeting, and we're lucky. There are other technologies that are not there, but clean technology, renewable energy is here, and it's good for business.
Okay. Lorna, I'm going to come back to you. You've described the People's Determined Contribution Campaign as a moral uprising for our common home. What makes this moment ripe for this kind of uprising?
I think, is this working? Yeah. I think because
everything's working in the studio. It's just sometimes it doesn't sound like it's working.
Okay. I think it's because we've reached, in a sense, a turning point. We feel like we've reached the end of the road in terms of the way things are currently working and the way things are currently going. And in particular, I feel in relation to the COP process, 10 years on from Paris, we've succeeded in bending the curve of emissions, but it's flatlining. We need that curve. I did a diagram for 10 years ago for my children, and it showed that you need to bend the curve almost like off a cliff in terms of emissions. If we're to stay within, well, now they're even saying we can't stay within 1.5, but to have even a chance of staying within the 1.5 degrees, that emissions curve doesn't need to flatline. We can't just congratulate ourselves. In 10 years, we've flatlined. We need that emissions curve to be going off the cliff now. And with the current logic of negotiations, this is what really worries me. People show up with a logic that with the NDCs is to do the minimum possible. In fact, the Paris Agreement required countries to turn up for each global stocktake with a ratcheting mechanism, which was about increasing ambition. It seems to have got lost, that ambition. The way to restore ambition of Paris is for the non-state actors, like the faiths, like the business community, like the broader civil society, cultural institutions, to have a collective mechanism to show our commitment. So if the NDC is the national commitment, we should have the youth commitment, the faith commitment, that collectively brings the people's commitment. And yeah, so that's what we're launching, the proposal. We don't have it all worked out. You know, a proposal like this is huge. It's potentially can change, like it can help to build that planetary movement. But we need to do it together. It needs to be a road, a journey. We leave Belém going towards the next COP with a concrete proposal. We need a decision in the COP, this COP, to say the global ethical stocktake will continue to the next COP. And as part of that, we will commit to having a much more enhanced mechanism for civil society engagement, which we see as the PDCs.
So, I mean, it sounds like a good idea. I would love to dig far deeper into how it would be executed on the ground, which would be an interesting topic in itself. But just to move back slightly, I mean, I can understand the sense of frustration with the COP processes. I can understand the sense of frustration where somehow governments sign up to the science but don't actually fully implement what they know to be true. But as you say, we do have some glittering things that we can hold on to. I mean, the fact that solar power and wind power is cheaper than chips right now, you know, is like unbelievably good news. And also, you know, when you look at the private sector, right, I mean, and the cities, I mean, what they're delivering in terms of ambition is quite amazing, yeah? And NDCs are kind of interesting, and the Chinese one's always probably the most interesting because there's the Chinese actually having put on the table a very low emission reduction target, and some people say wow, and some people say yeah, and then you think, yeah, but China just completely overachieves every time. So it's a game of poker as well a bit with the NDCs. Poker with our future, I know, but poker, I don't know. There's some positive things from the business side, are there not? We don't have a city representative, but we have the private sector.
Definitely. I spent some time in Rio with mayors and business officials.
Yeah.
Well, let's face it, I think the NDCs also, it's a political bargain in some form. But when we look at China and how they're developing, is incredible. I think what I'm very inspired by what Lorna was saying is that we just need to bring this to the attention of many people. The people can do many things. The first, you know, they can do things at home. They also can choose who they represent them, the politicians. They also can choose where they work for and what do they do for. And what I find is that one can feel that this is very difficult, as we are seeing. It is very difficult. We have the technologies, but it is a massive transformation, right? So this needs to be unprecedented. It can go right or wrong, but what I find that is very interesting is that there is hope. And that's what what the conference was about, is raising hope. Hope gives people an agency to act. And this is what is important, is that we together, faith groups, business, gender movements, people movements, we can choose to take action on climate. And that's what needs to come out of this. And that will empower governments to go a bit further with their commitments.
Don't you think, though, that we've got 89% that they say they want climate action, 89% of people. I've seen other surveys before in the past. There's a lot of, quotes, us out there, but sometimes we don't feel there's a lot of us out there. Now, how do we connect that? Is it because nobody's talking about it on the bus? If you chat about it in the pub, people go, I don't want to talk about that, I want to talk about football. You know what I mean? How do we bring the us, the many who realize we need to do something, into the local community so when they're shopping, it's not weird to talk about why you're buying something versus something else? You know what? I just feel there's a bit of a bridge to be built here somewhere. Well, maybe the bishop can have a go.
I could start. Yeah. Well, I agree with what Lorna said. I think we're reaching a tipping point in terms of so many parts of society, business, civil society, faith leaders or faith communities, coming together. And I mean, there's also science to show that in order for a tipping point, a positive tipping point to be reached, you don't need a majority of the population. You need about 20-25%, and the snowball will start rolling. And I think to get people on board, because there was a recent survey in Sweden showing that 75% won't expect our government to live up to their climate decisions, the laws. And they're not. So I think what we lack maybe is leadership, at least in my own country, a political leadership. And lacking that, I think we need to get together. I do that a lot of the time. I meet other civil society actors. I meet business leaders. They are coming along, at least some of them. Like you said, they understand that there's also money in this in the far future. And so I don't think we can sit around waiting for the political leadership. We as movements, people's movements of different kinds, we need to see each other, acknowledge each other, and join hands, I think.
Yeah. Lorna, you make a comment, then I'm just going to go and find out if Amanda is still with us.
Yeah, so to me, two words that resonate are trust and agency. We have a huge problem across democracies of lack of trust in institutions. So people are, like with social media, there's so much fake news, and we know now with the climate situation that there's a lot of fake news circulating. So to me, one, how do we restore trust? And I think the faith communities have they come up as one of the most trusted organisations. So we find those trusted communities. And the other one, as you said, is a sense of agency. People are bamboozled by this whole thing. Like, is it true? Is that happening? Is it not happening? What can I do? But I think we need to change this from what can I to what can we do together.
Yeah. Maybe it's not bad to being absolutist as well. I mean, I took an electric car journey from San Francisco to New York from a conference in 2018 where Jerry Brown was running something in California. And we went to a town that had been destroyed by a tornado. The bishop there was not interested in hearing the word climate change. Neither was the mayor. But they were rebuilding with solar power and everything else. So we left our interview as, well, okay, they don't believe in climate change, but they're building back with solar. Okay, that's fine. Sometimes it doesn't have to be that you agree with everybody's, whole statement. But if your action is in the right direction and it's care and understanding, maybe it's okay, Yeah, is Amanda with us or not? Amanda?
Yes, I'm absolutely here, and I would love
Yeah, just
to
jump
pick
in,
up
because it's
on-
easy to forget the Zoom call.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love this word bamboozled is a really good one. And I can tell you that 10 years ago, when we were negotiating the Sustainable Development Goals, which led into Paris, the vast majority of my colleagues at the United Nations did not understand the science. Now, some of them may be grumpy that I'm calling them out. Neither did I. And I think this is why it's so important to have this, and I'm now holding it up so you can see Parliamentarians' Global Guide. It's really easy to understand. So tomorrow you will get a copy, everybody. But I wanted to tell a story of how local action here in Hawaii, where I'm based, really made a difference. And this was through a philanthropist called Hank Rogers, who started a whole movement by encouraging kids to go door to door to have conversations and to change light bulbs in 300,000 households to LEDs. So this was the beginning of a movement. Then the kids actually drew on the pavements where sea level rise would be. And we're an island. We already have documented sea level rise and more to come. And this began to engage people's perception on what could happen. Then the point that was made about how much cheaper action is with renewables now. The cost curve has come down 90%. And as an economist, I can also tell you we are still subsidizing fossil fuels, 7.1 trillion with a T, dollars a year. And the IMF and the World Bank estimate that if we got rid of those subsidies, repurposed them, we would have a drop in emissions of 3/4 of where we need to be by 2030. So ridiculously, we are actually subsidizing ourselves into oblivion. So here in Hawaii, as these facts came out, Hank was actually able to engage the local legislature and get bipartisan agreement to Hawaii being 100% renewable energy by 2045. And that comment you made about that event hosted by Governor Brown, that was the Global Climate Action Summit, where he announced that California was following Hawaii's lead and committing to 100% renewable energy by 2045. So a whole movement started, and despite the US withdrawing from Paris, over 50% of Americans are covered by a commitment at the state level to renewable energy. And now I'd like to make an invitation to everybody watching. If you would like to commit to 100% renewable energy, we at the Blue Planet Alliance will pay for you to come to Hawaii, learn the journey here that in fact has been a very rapid one from only 5% renewable to 40% in 10 years. It's in May and October, so please let us know, and we would love to invite you here and help you join the movement.
Okay, so I mean, a good point there was you trust people you know in your community. Yeah, which is a bit of the point you were making about the church or other faiths. Let's not just be the Catholic Church, so other faiths too. Or friends, right. Haley, carry on with that theme. Or...
Yes, I was going to mention that one of the biggest challenges in addressing the climate crisis is that it's also a communications crisis. There is mass disinformation. There's also the fact that climate change has become political. Unfortunately, you know, the right to clean air, water, food on your table, access to energy, all these things are becoming very political when they should be seen as our basic rights. And I think at the human level, which is often not in a lot of these conversations and spaces, we all can agree that, you know, we need these things, but also we value these things with our communities. And so when we're leaving people out of the decision-making processes like NDCs, which should be setting these big, you know, big targets, big goals that they should either be achieved or surpassed, we leave people out. We're leaving solutions off the table, most importantly. And when people don't feel like there's a pathway for empowerment, they go on to other jobs in other places. For example, there's about 50% of young people right now are leaving their job because their job doesn't care about climate change. But where are they going? There's not that many jobs right now in the market, not enough rather, to support that big growth. At the same time, we're suffering economic crises, housing crises, cost of living crises, and there's another bunch of young people that are saying, well, you know, I have to go pay bills now, and I can't do the climate justice work anymore because it's, you know, mostly volunteer. Care About Climate is primarily volunteer-run organization. We all do school, jobs, other things at the same time when we're trying to build a movement and build community. And we do it because we care, but because we're trying to shift that narrative. Yeah. And so being a part of things like the Parliamentarians Global Guide on Climate and joining that youth forward and giving that statement in the beginning really shows that, like, youth, we're still here. We care about climate change. Our governments might not care as much as we do. The Paris Agreement is not being achieved yet, not because the agreement itself is failing, but because political will is failing. And we're showing that we still have a lot of power and agency to hopefully step up and change that.
So maybe, you know, I mean, disinformation has always been accompanying the climate process since the beginning. But now the disinformation is quite shrill and loud and endless. Could it be that, in fact, we're not losing, we're actually winning? And that the oil and gas industry knows their numbers up. I mean, you know as well as I do. I mean, not only renewables are far more cheaper now than oil and gas, but also the oil companies are not really investing in new oil anymore. They're just holding on to what they've got, right?
I think, well, yes, we know you're completely right. That the only issue we have now is with so much misinformation, some people or companies might be confused. Mm-hmm. Because they don't know what is right or what is wrong. And so we need to reach to them where they are. So that's why you said before, maybe we don't talk about climate, we talk about energy, jobs, security, competitiveness. Mm-hmm. Maybe we don't talk about climate impacts, but we talk about air pollution and productivity loss because of heat, which we are experiencing here, etc. And now let me tell you, anyone that is listening, imagine you have a bus that is coming and you have your kids, and the bus is going to take your kids. What do? You rush to take those kids and to defend them, right? Well, let me tell you about this panel. When we started, we are all a little bit tired, but the energy that you can see in this panel is great. It is the same I felt with the mayors, it's the same I feel when business, it's the same I feel with even governments when they talk to business. We want to solve this. We want to save the children or the children of our friends, okay, because we care, okay? And I think this is very important, and it gives the agency that we spoke before for people to take action. Wherever you are, you can take action and you can be part of the solution.
We've got just 1 minute left. A quick word from you. I mean, is this productive? I mean, do you feel that there are more and more people forming alliances on this topic?
And I think we need to look at how we bring it forward. And I wanted to say to the audience, if they want to find out more about the proposal of the PDCs, then they can look at the website we've created as a kind of holding space for the proposal. It's raisinghope.earth/action. raisinghope.earth/action. So if they want to log on, they can sign up just to be involved, and then we will discuss with others how we move this forward and start to create from now until the COP next year the people's determined contributions.
Maybe people need to find out in their neighborhoods other like-minded people who share their values, because again, it's not weird to be interested in the future of your planet. It's not weird to want to have clean energy. It's not weird. This is actually normal. People really should be, it should be a normal thing, right? And it is a normal thing. If there's 89% out there think about these topics, then it's the majority.
And across the political spectrum.
Yeah. And across the political spectrum, yeah.
Both whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, you care about the air you breathe, okay? And this is important for everybody, wherever you sit in the political spectrum.
I just wanted to add, I think that, two important points are that we need to get outside more, reconnect with nature and our surroundings, and really understand, touch grass, as we say, to really understand what it is we are protecting and to reconnect with that. And to secondly is, don't be afraid to accept that the fossil fuel industry is dying, and it is, whether it wants to accept it or not, it's not weird, as you're saying, to accept that truth. And the sooner that we can accept that, the sooner we can adopt a just transition, which will help solve things like gender inequality, poverty, hunger, all these different elements of the Sustainable Development Goals. Start with people, and trying to solve the climate crisis first will be the avenue and the gateway to solving all of the other problems that affect so many communities. So don't be afraid to talk about climate change. And if you are, come talk to me. I'm happy to talk to you. I grew up in a conservative state, so happy to find new ways, new language to help make sure everyone's on board.
Yeah. And it's been said before, but the Stone Age didn't end for lack of stones, did it? It ended because there were loads of stones around, but they found a better way to do things. Okay. Good. I'm sorry, we've run over time. It's been really lovely to have you all here. Thank you very much indeed, and best of luck with your work, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Bob, please.
I think every single person on this planet needs to be educated and re-educated about climate change. We are dedicated as the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to embrace this education issue.
We can look into the eyes of our children, our grandchildren, and we can finally tell them that we have joined hands to bequeath a more habitable world.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
State Congress voted to ban abortion. Alternate universe located.
Global temperatures rise.
The effects on social media on Generation Z.
To avoid catastrophe, rising sea levels, and dying coral reefs, the epicenter of a global pandemic.
No exception for rape or incest.